Tuesday's events kicked off with a Distinguished Achievers Breakfast with special speaker Tony Mendez and his wife Jonna, whose work was basis for the Academy Award-winning film, ARGO.
And I think each of you can think about the jobs that you do today and how a high-speed, fully interoperable broadband network that goes anywhere in this country would be able to help in what you do and how you serve people. So, this mission will always trump politics. And if we stand together, just like you've done from the beginning, and we continue the legacy of what APCO does and how we can continue to work together, we will have this network built out in a very short period of time, and we will have the kind of capability that I described this morning.
Availability in the midst of crisis. It's a central concern for your jobs in emergency communications. How do you manage to stay on when our power is off? How do you stay connected and available in remote areas or during natural disasters? How do you filter out the hackers but allow in the calls for help from your local citizens? And how can you be available for the silent calls for help? And by this I mean the text messages from callers who are hard of hearing or in noise-sensitive situations such as a kidnapping. Availability. It's a complex problem in our ever-changing world of emergency communications. But the real star of our ARGO was not on the big screen. The real-life star is Tony Mendez, who single-handedly engineered the rescue of 6 U.S. diplomats from Iran during the hostage crisis. We are excited to have Tony and his wife Jonna Mendez here to speak today. Both of them are former CIA Chiefs of Disguise. What a great title, huh? This morning they will share some of their incredible stories, including certain aspects of the hostage crisis never publicly released before. Tony and Jonna will share lessons learned, and they'll provide some of their personal tips on how to stay calm during a stressful event. Please join me in welcoming Tony and Jonna Mendez.
Tony was one of the most famous men who you never heard of inside of the CIA for many years. He was an exfiltration specialist, which meant that a good portion of his life was spent going in and rescuing people. There are many, many stories. ARGO is just one. It's a really good one. Tony was he was hired as a counterfeiter forger when he joined the CIA. He was an artist, and they loved his hand-eye coordination. He had no idea what he was going to end up doing with that, but it was all legal because he was doing it for the United States government.
That's a stretch. I was cognizant of, I knew of, I led groups, but all that activity was a big piece of the business for a while. And I would say there was probably over 150 successful operations. And once we took it on ourselves to launch an operation, we never lost one. So that's, I think, a decent use of taxpayers' money.
They asked you in the movie at that time, Tony, if you had any ideas. And at that time, you said you did not. You didn't know how to get them out, but you knew that bicycles wasn't going to be the way. Can you speak to this group about when you had the idea, when you figured out, when you came up with this epiphany of Hollywood?
Well, we were frustrated getting a consensus between all the departments that we ended up using as sounding boards. But that's what we call the committee effect. And those of you who have done the bureaucratic thing know that it's a frustrating business and it's not clean and it's not fun. But out of desperation, during one of those trips to Canada to coordinate our thinking, I had a revelation, and I realized that I was sitting on top of the solution if I could pull it off. And that was our we've had a long-standing relationship with Hollywood, and a couple of them were active at this moment, and so I merely picked up the telephone and called my friend out there on the West Coast and asked him how many people in a location scouting party and what would their specialties be. He said 6 or 8, and you could fill in the blanks on what were their specialties. Everybody knows people from Hollywood are a little eccentric. They would go anywhere in the world to find the right bazaar or shopping center or hilltop to shoot their movie. They wouldn't be much concerned with the political environment because they had other things more important to do. We decided to call our movie ARGO, which was a battle cry that we used in our operations. When things were getting a little tight, we would yell ARGO, and the other guy would shake his fist and say ARGO back. But it was clear that we needed to use that movie name for our operation.